Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Okay. Why don't we start with talking about Vim? Let me share my desktop with you, and that way we can all see exactly what's going on. Okay. Let's go back to our parallels machine. And okay. So right now, what we're doing is we're going to talk about Vim, and I want to do a quick introduction to what it means. So let's do that. So Vim for Victory Windows Edition. What does Vim for Victory actually mean? The way I see it, Vim is a very, very useful tool in getting over a lot of different problems. However, if you've ever wondered what it's like to learn Vim and to understand it, there definitely is a learning curve involved. So here you can see a slide that I found on the web on the different learning curves for different tools. So, Notepad's pretty easy. I have no idea what Pico is. Um, Maybe it's Pico Edit. Visual Studio has a learning curve. VI has a constant, difficult learning curve. And Emacs is just weird. Um, a friend suggested that VI is kind of like the difference between Emacs and VI is that VI is like playing the piano. You can play one key at a time, and Emacs is like playing the guitar, where you have to play chords. It kind of plays nicely in my mind. So why Vim? Vim is a very lightweight text editor. It's been used for a really long time by a lot of developers, so it's very mature. And some types of editing it makes really, really easy, especially in very difficult environments where you don't have a lot of resources. You don't want to install very, very complicated things like Visual Studio, and you just need lightweight editing that's also very powerful. On Mac, it's very powerful for doing even pair programming using SSH and a tool called Tmux. And I do view it like regular expressions. It's an important skill that you want to be able to have, so that when the time comes, you know how to use it. Also, it's definitely is something that gets you out of your comfort zone. If you can learn Vim, you can pretty much learn anything. That's the way I see that stuff going. There are many types of Vims actually. Hey, even in Mac, you can have Vim in the command line. In Visual Studio, if you get used to it, there's VS Vim for Visual Studio, which I actually use all the time. Even you can even add VI bindings to Word to edit Word stuff automatically, and there are even VI like bindings for browsers like Firefox and Chrome. So once you have that skill, you can actually use it in a lot of different places, and it makes your life definitely a bit easier in those places. Now, there are two flavors for Vim, might even be three. There's the command line version, which is called VI or Vim, which is VI improved, which is usually what everybody uses. VI is very old, it has very little features. And then you have the GUI version. So on Windows, it's called GVim, GUI Vim, or also on Linux, and on Mac it's called Mac Vim. But they all share the same configurations, etc. Now for Windows specifically, if you just want to get it, you just install gvim 7.4, which is the latest version 7.4 something, from vim.org. However, if you are going to customize it like we're going to do, but not today, definitely you want Git, and we're going to talk about customization definitely in later chapters. Okay, so first of all, let me just show you what Vim actually looks like. This is Vim on Windows. When you actually just start it, I have Vim running here, so I'll just start it again. I close it. I'm going to start it. This is GUI Vim, and I didn't do any configuration to it whatsoever. This is the default vanilla, and it looks, boring and pretty not so amazing at all. And then you look at it and say, well, what the hell is everybody so crazy about with this tool? And the answer is, by default, there's not allowed a lot to see. We're gonna customize it so that we like what we have. But before we even start customization, we have to understand kind of how it works. Because Vim is very different from a standard text editor, because it was originally built for working in a command line environment. So everything that you do in Vim involves typing, all commands. You can have shortcuts, but even those shortcuts or customizations are also executed using what's called Vim script and Vim commands, which you write almost like writing in a command line. So if you have a vanilla Vim, if you just try to write something, nothing's going to actually happen. And there's a joke, kind of, how do you get a student to be occupied with 4 hours? And the answer is that you open Vim and you ask them to close it. And it's actually pretty difficult when you just start out. It's actually pretty difficult to close Vim or even start editing files, because it's very different. By default, Vim has this mode called read-only mode. And by default, you're not editing any kind of file. So why don't we just start by editing a file or creating a new file? To open a file or to edit a new file, we have to enter what's called command mode. And all command modes start with colon. So if I just type colon with my keyboard right now, shift colon, what you might see is, it's hard to see right now what's going on, but if I say shift colon, now you see there's a colon here at the bottom. And that means I'm in command mode. Whenever you're in command mode, your cursor is going to be at the bottom of the Vim screen. Now you can type various commands. For example, if I type Q for quit, is going to close the current buffer, the current window. There's only one buffer and it's saved. It will actually close Vim. So that's kind of how you close it. Let's open another one. Now, what if I want to create a new file? Then I type colon and I say E for edit and new, new, and then I can give a file name. Let's say hello world.txt. And I press enter. Oops, this is trailing characters. New. Let's just press enter here, and now I'm in a new file. So I don't have to type the name. Now I'm in a new file. I can't actually write anything. I'm in what's called a read-only mode. Let me just get back and show you the different modes. The different modes are, by default, we're at read-only mode, so we're navigating. We can use HLJK to move up and down. And the idea is that we don't have to move our hands off the keyboard. But if we actually want to edit some text, we might use I for insert. And that brings us to the second mode, which is actual editing. So if I go back to Vim here, and I say, okay, I'll press I. What you'll see is that, first of all, at the bottom it says insert mode. Insert mode is a mode where you can actually edit text. Now, if I type something, hello world, it actually gets typed. Now, how do I actually save this? Well, first of all, I have to get out of insert mode, because by default, I kind of think of Vim kind of like a fighter pilot that targets remote targets with laser pointers, and only when it need be, they press the trigger and they edit something, they change something. So I just changed something, I put hello world, and I immediately get out of the danger zone. So then I press escape to get out of this navigation mode, to get back out to default mode. I press escape, and you'll notice my cursor changes and the insert mode at the bottom changes as well. Now, if I use J and K, well, there's only one line. If I use H and L, I can start moving. Now, if I move here and I press I again, it inserts before W. So press I and say comma, or you know what, comma space, and escape again. Now, if I actually wanted to save the file, I'll again just type colon and write W, and then the file name. So I can type the file name. Well, it's going to be in my home directory, which by default you can say there's a tilde for the user home directory slash hello.txt. And if I press enter, you can see it says hello.txt was saved. Now I'm going to open a tool called Everything Search Engine. And I say, okay, hello.txt. You can see there's a hello.txt in C users Royo. This is, by the way, a very useful tool that you can use on Windows. If I just open it with Notepad, you can see that I have this text right here. So I was able to edit the file. If I wanted to just open an existing file, again, I would type colon and say E for edit, and then I will give it the file name, which in this case is the hello world. Now, these are the two basic modes. Default is navigation, and then you have edit mode. So this is edit mode, and you can get into edit mode in multiple keys, right? For example, I will insert before, and A will insert after the current word. But there are multiple combinations of this. For example, if I go back with H, I want to add something. I want to add a dot at the end of the sentence. And this is where Vim starts to shine. If I just want to add a dot to the end of the sentence, I don't want to move to the end of the sentence. I can just press Shift A. So instead of just after, if I press lowercase a, I'm after the current character. I'll press Escape. I want after the whole line, so I'll press Shift A, and I just call it the big after. So Shift A will move to the end of the word and jump into insert mode. So I can just type dot and escape. Now, what if I wanted to move to insert at the beginning of the line? You guessed it, Shift I, or big insert. I'll just do Shift I, and now I'm in the beginning of the line. I'll just say hello world, space, and escape. If I want to save it, I'll just do colon W for save. And now, of course, the file name is already written. Now, what if I wanted to enter a new line? Well, you could enter a new line by going into insert mode or by moving. So I can move to the right and to the left. In fact, I have multiple ways to move. I can move word by word. If I press W in navigation mode, not colon W, just W, I can move word by word. W, W, W. If I press Shift W, I go back. Shift W, or Shift W. Oh, sorry. If I press B, I go back. B, 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 B. W, W, W. But if I just want to enter a new line, technically you can say, oh, you know what? You do use a big after, so Shift A, and then enter. But that's not the Vim way. There usually is a key for that. And that key is O, as in, oh, you can make a new line just by pressing O. So if I go back, I'm in the middle of the sentence, but I still want to make a new line. I press O, and a new line is formed, and I'm in the insert mode right in the line below. This is the second line. Dot. Escape. Colon W. Saved. Now, what if I want to add a line just above the current line? You can probably guess it's a Shift O. I press a Shift O, and I'm here. Shift O. Colon W, save. So these are the basic two modes. Let's see. Now, another important thing that we can do here is to say, well, how do I select a word if I wanna select a word and delete it? Because if I'm just standing on a character here, I can press X to delete a character. So X will cut it. X, X, X. I can also use, I can also cut a whole word. So I can start to select a whole word by going into selection mode. Selection mode is by V. So you have 3 selection modes. The most basic one is you press V, and then you move somewhere. So if I move to the right, you can see that I'm selecting to the right and maybe to the left. If I've selected this and then I press X, I've cut whatever was selected. I can press V, and I can also undo my cuts. So if I press U for undo, I undo all the changes that I did. If I press Control R, I redo the changes that I did. By the way, it's very recommended to map your caps lock to Control on your keyboard. It makes working with Vim much easier. So that was the first selection, just V, and then moving somewhere. There's also a second type of selection, which is Shift V. Shift V selects the whole line, then you can move up and down. So now I can select the whole lines and press either X or D. X will cut it, and then I can paste it, or D will delete the lines. Now, if I wanted to actually paste what I cut last, I can use P for paste or put. So if I put P again, it actually moves down. Let's say I wanted to put or paste again, I just press P again and again and again. Now, maybe you've noticed that it inserts the paste. So what I can do instead, I can press Shift P to paste just above, or of course I can go to the end of the line by pressing Shift $, or press 0 to be at the beginning of the line. So if I go to $, then I press paste, then of course I'm at the end of the line. So you can start to see that the navigation plus the pasting and the cutting and the visual and the selection becomes pretty powerful. There's a third type of selection, which is Control V. Control V will usually allow you to do multiple selections, and for some reason I have mapped the keys here for Control V because this is GUI Vim. But there is definitely a third type of selection, and for some reason it's not working here. I'll figure it out later. Let's see. That's the third type. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay, so again, it's kind of like a fighter pilot. Okay, you navigate your way. You want to go to where you want to go. You select the stuff that you want to select with the selection mode or navigation mode, and then bam, you actually go and you change something, and immediately you press escape and you move on to the next change. These are the basic movements. Now, there's actually a program called Vimtutor. It's built into Vim. If you're installing Vim on Windows, you can actually start vimtutor.bat, and what you're going to get is basically a file that shows you how to edit the basic movements in Vim. So if we look for Vimtutor here, if I look using the everything search engine, say Vimtutor, and you can see that there's a batch file here. If I start it, it actually starts a new version of Vim, and then here you can see it teaches you the basic keys and movements that I've shown here and a few more. So you can actually go down and it teaches you the basic stuff, selection as well, changing things. And you can actually go ahead and just try that. And you can change that file as much as you want, because if you start the batch file, it actually creates a backup first. One thing that I didn't show how to do is what happens if you change the file, you press escape, you didn't save it yet with write, but you want to quit anyway. So you can quit by going to, if you try to do :Q for quitting, what's going to happen is it's going to tell you, there is no write since the last change. But you can add an exclamation mark to override. So you can do Q and then exclamation mark, and then that will quit Vim or the file and Vim itself. Now, here's the thing. You can have multiple buffers open. In fact, Vim is made of buffers. So if I just do :ls, list all the buffers, you see there's only one buffer, and it has hello text, and the buffer name is 1. And I press enter to make it go away. But what if I wanted to add a new file? New. I have to save this first. New, and then I'll write hello another world, and I'll save it by write hello2.txt. Now, if I do :ls, you'll see that we have two buffers here. One is 1 and one is 3. Why is the way it is, why there is no 2, that doesn't matter for our purposes. But if I wanted to switch between those buffers, I could say :b and give you buffer 3, :b3, or :b1 to go back to my original buffer. Of course, this is, you might be saying, this is horrendous. Well, what am I? Is this the 1800s? Are there going to be people with buckets standing behind me to catch my, well, never mind. But the answer is that later we're going to talk about plugins and things that make working with files much easier. But you have to remember that when you're working in a command line in a very old Unix system, you can still do all the things that we see here. And so in our powerful Windows-based systems, a lot of these things kind of feel a bit redundant, but that's where the power of Vim comes from. Because if you know how to use it in one system, you know how to use it in any system. And that's really where it shines. So it supports moving between files and doing anything purely at the command line level. But we can also have plugins that allow us to work much more neatly and visually with different files. But we're not going to cover them here today. Now, if I wanted to, if I press Command Q, I have multiple buffers open. So what's going to happen is that this buffer will close, but the other buffer will stay open. Oh, well, that didn't happen. So usually it should keep all the buffers open, but I guess the vanilla installation will close all of them by default. Another thing we can do in the GUI Vim, we can still see the buffers that are shown here. So we do have some kind of addition to see some of this. So to see some of the buffers that we could have done in the command line. But I'm specifically not using the menus because usually people who use Vim don't really use the menus, they just use the keyboard. The next item that I want to talk about is basically my favorite keys, because what I want to show before we get to configuration in the next demo, in next chapter, is that we can actually have much more complicated commands than the one that I've just shown. Because what I've just shown, just moving in some selection, it doesn't even start to cut what you can actually do with Vim. So now let's talk about a new command, and that command is called change. Okay, so let me open. So I'm gonna press E, new. I'm gonna type here, this is something. Press escape. Now, the one of the most common things that you can do in Vim is to repeat the last action. If I press dot, what's going to happen is that the last action I did is going to be repeated, just like a macro. If I go to the end of the line, dollar, and I press this, press dot, this is what's happening now. Press O, enter, this is another line, escape, dot, and you can see that we have all these things. Now, what if I wanted to go to the beginning of the file? Now we have more complicated movements than the movements that I've shown before. If I wanted to go to the beginning of the file, I can press GG, like go, like really go to the beginning of the file, GG. Now, if I wanted to delete the whole line, remember D deletes my selection, X deletes the current character, but I can now use movements in combination with actions. So if you remember, if I use word, W, I move between words. That's a movement. If I press 0, I go back to the beginning. But if I do DW, as in delete word, DW, I've deleted a word. I'll do that again, DW. In fact, now I can use dot to repeat my action. DW, I did that once, now I do dot, 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 dot. That's pretty nice. Now, maybe I can do, you know what, let's delete 3 words. So I press the number 3, then D, and you can see here at the bottom, 3D and then word. And what's going to happen is that 3 words are going to be deleted. I'm going to go down to this line and show exactly. Let's delete 3 words here. 3DW. And I've deleted 3 words. Press U for undo. I can use it for a lot of different things. For example, I can press DD to delete the whole line. DD deletes the whole line. And then dot will just keep doing that. So you can become pretty productive. I can do Shift V for selection and delete. And then dot will again do multiple selection and delete that stuff. In fact, what's the opposite of GG that goes up? Shift G goes down. So what if I do delete Shift G? I've deleted the whole file. Undo. So this combination of movements and deletion and actions becomes very powerful. And that's, I think, where the biggest change of heart came for me, is when I understood, hey, you know what? I can do very, very cool different things with this. For example, let's say that somewhere here in this sentence, I want to change the word another to a different word. There's a special action called change, and it takes a movement as well. So I can, for example, go to this word, and I can say C for change, and then the movement W for word. So change word. And now I've changed it and moved back into insert mode. This is really a long line. So now I've changed the word very, very quickly. If I show that again very quickly, I'm here, I say WW, change word, something, escape. So you can very quickly, almost in a scalpel-like precision, surgical precision, to change something. Now, it gets even better, because you can do, if I'm in the middle of a word, I can do change, and then I for in, and then word. So now I don't have to go back to the beginning of the word. So I'm going to escape, undo. So, for example, I'm just here in the beginning. I'll say change, CIW, changing word, and I'm changing, this is changed. And so what you're going to see a lot when working with Vim is that you have this quick combination of combo keys. It's kind of like in a video game where you press XY, XY to do something very magical. So here I might say, you know what if I press A here, and I have these braces, and I'll press here again. And I say, change CI and then a brace, CI and then the end brace. Now I've changed everything between the braces. Yeah, baby. That's pretty cool, right? I can even try and do surround. No, okay. Now I can use the word, the R word character for replacement. So I can say, you know what, replace just this character with 5. We change that to 5. You can do a lot of these things very, very quickly. This combination of movements plus actions plus repetition begins to be very, very powerful. So if I just want to delete the sentences up to a specific point, I could say dd ... Suddenly my life is better. I could also do, you know what? For each one of these, I want to add a dot. I'll do Shift A, dot at the end, escape. Then I go down to, and I press dot again. Down to, press dot. I don't have to go back into insert mode. I don't have to do anything. It just repeats it, kind of like a macro. And later, you can see that there are very, very powerful macros. You can easily, just in time, record a set of very powerful keystrokes. And that's where you're going to end up with a macro that's being recorded. So that's the basic movements inside Vim. If you really want to understand the Vim modes and transitions, there are some very, very horrible diagrams on the web on how to understand this. So this is a very bad way to understand it. This is another not so great, although it's kind of better to understand it. This is also a different way to visualize it. Here's another way to visualize all the modes. Frankly, I just print this stuff and I just put it on my wall at the beginning And that allows me to understand how things work. For example, one thing that I did not show here in Vim is that how do you find something? So let's say that I have this, I'll press O and then type Roy. I just want to find it. I press the right slash, or it's not a backslash, it's a front slash. I'll press the slash here. I'll type Roy. You can see that it finds it, and then I'm going back to it. Now, what if I'm looking for the word this? Type this, enter. You can see that it found multiple. I can move between them with the N, move between all the places where it found it. Now, let's say I want to just change the ending of this word. I could basically do a CW just to change the ending of this, or I'll just press undo for that. I could also, if I wanted to change all the way to the end of a sentence, is something very powerful. I don't care about all the two words on the end. I can just do Shift C to delete all the way to the end and go into change mode. So Shift C and continue here. Go back here, Shift C, do something else. But if I wanted to combine a line, that's pretty cool. Shift and D will delete or actually remove the combination between this line and the other and combine them together. So Shift D will move it up and move it up. Let's see what happens. Shift D again. I can do this all the time. Shift D, Shift D, Shift D, etc. So there are multiple ways, multiple movements, and when you learn them, suddenly your life becomes so much better. I think that's the end of our demo. Now, if we want, we do have some time for questions. Now, if there are no other questions, I think that's it for today. So thank you very much. Hope you had a great time. Thank you, everybody.